Next up in our webinar series is Krystal Brooks, Director of College and Early Career Women for the Forte Foundation. Hi, Krystal. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me.
It's great for you to be here. Our listeners are excited. As a brief overview on the Forte Foundation, Forte is a nonprofit consortium of leading companies and top business schools working together to launch women into fulfilling significant careers through access to business education, opportunities, and a community of successful women. Krystal at Forte leads programming for college and pre-MBA women with the goal of building the pipeline of the next generation of women business leaders. She is the program director for MBA Launch, Forte's 10-month MBA preparatory program for women. Krystal also has 9 years of MBA admissions experience cultivated in varying roles at Carnegie Mellon's Tepper School of Business, most recently as Director of Admissions, Master's Admissions. So without further ado, I'd like to ask you some questions to better assist the audience with advice on the MBA application and admitted student process. First off, Krystal, could you share an overview of Forte's MBA Launch program? What is it and how can candidates be considered?
The MBA Launch program is a 10-month program for women who are attempting to submit their strongest application for business school. And we work through this program in 3 ways. The first is through curriculum that starts at GMAT preparation and brainstorming and resume development, the whole way through essays and interview preparation. We deliver this content through live events as well as webinars. And the second piece of the program is really around community. And this is really where we work with our women to develop a community of peers that will support them through the admissions process and through that long 10-month process of applying, and then hopefully be a support network for them as they move forward with their MBA and their post-MBA career. And the third piece of this is really in advising. And we pair our MBA launchers up with a MBA alumna who will help them and reinforce our messages and get them really excited and prepared to submit really strong applications and show them inspirational role modeling through the process, as well as give them opportunities to connect with advisors and experts from our sponsor schools, our admissions consulting partners, as well as GMAT and test prep partners as well. And so through this curriculum and community and advising, we feel like it's a really strong way for these women to embark on a journey that will hopefully lead them to their dream MBA programs and beyond.
Krystal, that's great. And I actually know a handful of fellow MBA women who went through the MBA Launch program and some who even got Forte scholarships for their desired schools. So that's an awesome opportunity.
That's fantastic.
Great. So next up, could you also tell us a little bit about Forte's history and opportunities for folks who are members?
Of course. Forte was founded back in 2001 after a landmark research study conducted by Catalyst and the University of Michigan. And one of its primary findings was around women and the percentage of women that were applying to business school were still so underrepresented when compared with women that were applying to schools in medicine and in law. And what are the perceptions or perhaps misperceptions that women had about business and business careers that were preventing them to pursue an MBA? And so since then, our mission has expanded to not only include pre-MBA and MBA women, but also college women, early career women, as well as post-MBA and executive women that are all looking forward to leadership and successful careers in business. The MBA launch program, like we talked about, is one of our hallmark events, but we also have programming for all career stages. You mentioned women that had scholarships through their member schools. We have 51 member schools that all support women through Forte Fellowships, which is a scholarship opportunity for women who are applying for business school.
Krystal, thanks so much for that. I'm so happy Forte is behind this. I still find it so interesting just to observe the number of women applying for other master's degrees, like you said, law, medical, and it's still trailing behind business. But I'm such a huge advocate for the degree. It's one of the few, if not the only degree that actually expands your opportunities rather than narrows them. So I'm glad Forte is helping to make the change. For people in the application process that are still researching schools and applying, how can they be sure that their target list contains the right set of schools? And part two, what are some of the important criteria to consider that might get overlooked by some applicants when thinking about where to apply?
Great question. The right set of schools is a really tricky one because many students may approach this process and think, okay, what are the 5 right set of schools? What are the 5 best schools that I can apply to, and then go from there? And really that's the wrong way to approach it, because the set of schools that's best for you may be completely different than the set of schools that is best for another candidate, even someone who works in your same industry or has similar goals, because there are so many different criteria to consider when thinking about school selection. There are, of course, the criteria around what will be best for you in terms of getting that post-MBA job and that post-MBA career. And there are many schools that can help do that. And so you want to do a little bit of industry research and functional area research and make sure that recruiters are coming to visit the schools that you're interested in. But outside of that, there are a variety of things to consider when it comes to fit. And admissions folks will talk about fit ad nauseum sometimes, but fit is really true. You want to make sure that the school is a great fit for you and your career goals, as well as your personality and your learning style. So you might want to consider things like size. Are you looking for a large school with a huge network and maybe small cohorts of folks that you'll be connected with? Or are you looking for a smaller, closer knit type community where you know everybody in the class? Are you looking for something, a school that is more focused in a particular region of the country or of the world? Perhaps you're looking to work in Europe after school. Are there schools that may help you do that more so than others? So when considering fit, it's important to try these schools on, take them for a test drive. And a lot of schools will talk about the importance of campus visits. And it's true. If you can make it to campus, that's really the best way to try these schools on for size and see if they fit with you in terms of what you're looking for with this community. Because every school will feel a little bit different, and you want to be in the place that's best for you, not just for 2 years, but who are these people going to be in your network for your lifetime? Because that's really what you're signing up for here, is a lifetime community of folks that can help you in your career, and lifelong friends as well. So for part 2 of your question around criteria that might be overlooked, I think that fit is, it can be something that is difficult to assess. And I always suggest talking with students and alum to really assess what their experiences have been And sometimes I think that those resources might be overlooked. There are many schools that will post resources for you to connect with these types of folks. If you connect in a group like Forte MBA Launch, we can connect you with women that have attended schools, which can certainly help. And there are also ways that you might be able to tap into your own network on LinkedIn or friends of friends that may have attended schools that may interest you. So don't overlook those students and alum that can help you assess your fits. And one other point that I'll bring up, which I know is a big concern for many students, is financing. And scholarships and financing can be a stumbling block for students as they're starting to assess what's the return on investment of the MBA. Is this the best choice for me? And although there's lots of research that shows what a great investment the MBA can be, and that most MBA students are paying off their degree in 4 years or less, it still can be a scary concept when you think about taking on debt. And so one other thing to consider is not just cost, but also what are scholarship opportunities that may be available. There are many schools that are looking to recruit highly competitive candidates that will look at scholarship opportunities for the diversity that you can bring into the class or for the merit that you can bring into the class. So consider those opportunities and don't rule a school out just because you're worried about the financial investment.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you spoke a little bit too there about the fact that you're going to spend almost 2 years of your life at this school. And it's so much more than what are the best schools. Am I personally going to enjoy it? So thank you so much for that. Next up, what can applicants do to improve their prospects and prepare themselves while waiting on admissions decisions?
Sure. Well, the admissions decision waiting period can be difficult, and patience is necessary. So one of the things that I would recommend is you want to do all of your best work before you submit that application. So wait to apply until your application is at its strongest. Be sure you are submitting your application with the best GMAT or GRE score that you can attain, with the strongest essays, with your strongest resume, and really be sure that all of that is out there and ready to go. Now, once that's in the admissions team's hands, there's not a lot of written work that you'll be doing in most cases. But what is a key time during this waiting period is, again, in this assessment of fit. So you have selected maybe 4 or 5 schools, you submitted applications, and now you have a bit of time to wait. So what can you do? You can start talking with students again. You can begin to learn more about the program, start imagining yourself in those roles. But you also can start thinking about your post-MBA plans. And so what are some ways that, if you've got a dream of consulting, what are some things you can do to educate yourself about these careers? What are things that you could do to learn the lingo of business? Are there ways that you can ramp up your quant background to really be prepared to hit the ground running? So those are some of the things that I would recommend. Of course, if there are admissions opportunities for you to visit campus or to attend an event in your city, it's always a great idea to reconnect with admissions staff and remind them that you've submitted your application and you'd so love to attend their school. But outside of that, I would focus on looking at yourself, what's the best fit for you in the program, and also preparing yourself for that post-MBA goal.
Great. And we at Relish couldn't agree more with some of the career aspects. Of course, you need to take a break before you start business school. But nonetheless, the more you can do to research industries and companies, the better prepared you'll be when you get to school, because we all know that MBA recruiting begins right away, if not before school begins. So you want to have an idea. Absolutely. Next up here, how should applicants decide between schools to which they've been accepted? And part two, how should students balance factors like ranking versus cost?
Great question. And first of all, if you are deciding between schools, congratulations. That's a wonderful position to be in. And it's really, really exciting time of life and of this whole journey, because of course, the admissions process can feel like a journey of its own, but it really, the end of the admissions process is just the beginning of something completely new. So when you're trying to decide between schools, now is the time to get that fit criteria back out and to really assess what school is going to both fulfill your goals for your post-MBA career, as well as fit you the best and your community needs for those 2 years in that lifelong network. So if you haven't done so already, this is the perfect time to visit campus, to attend admitted student events or weekends that are planned on campus, diversity events, all ways for you to get to know your class, as well as who might be some of the people that would be in your class going forward, and to better know the school. So this is really where you start to assess that fit. And ultimately, in my view, fit is even more important than ranking, because rankings they'll change year to year, and most of these schools are going to propel you and give you opportunities and open doors that you never even imagined. And when you're assessing those kind of opportunities, really one school that's ranked 1 point higher or 5 points higher, there may not be that much of a difference when you really are considering making the best decision for you. So I always would really benchmark fit over ranking. Now, that said, scholarship and financing opportunities are also important to consider. And really, this takes an opportunity for you to assess your own risk tolerance. If you've got 2 offers from a school and one is a full ride and another is full tuition, which one do you choose? It can be tough. I would say that, again, do some reflection. Don't make the decision quickly. You've got time, and look at all of the factors, not just cost, because ultimately, like I said, the MBA is an excellent return on investment. Ultimately, students are seeing pay gains and along with huge life gains that are far outweighing what they were doing pre-MBA. So ultimately, I would suggest when you're thinking about cost, rankings, and fit, definitely prioritize fit and then let the other 2 kind of work themselves out along the way.
Perfect. I think that's really good advice. Of course, it's a good problem to have if you have multiple schools that you're choosing from. Nonetheless, a really huge life decision. And I've always said if you go with something that feels more like it fits, it's in line with your gut, you can't regret it. But if you go with the one that seems like the right answer to everyone else, to the outside world, it's much easier to regret. So next up, what are some best practices for candidates on wait lists? And do you have advice for students who were offered admission at one or more schools but waitlisted at a more desirable program?
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, congratulations. That can feel like a weird sentiment when you are on the wait list and you're saying, congratulations, I'm still on the waiting list. But congratulations, because remember, all of these schools have extremely competitive admissions criteria and applicant pools. And so because they are considering you on the waiting list, it means that you've shown them that there are qualities about you that are really attractive, and they like to still consider you when they're making decisions. So it's not a bad place to be, although it can be a tough place to be when you are managing the patience portion of all of this. So when you're on the waiting list, the most important thing for you to do first is to find out what your school's practices are around waiting lists. Some schools will accept additional material and communication. Some schools will not and do not want you to reach out. So the most important thing for you to understand is what are the practices at your school, and then follow them. So if your school does not want additional communication and they want you to wait, then that's what you should do, wait. If your school wants you to send an update or gives you the opportunity to do so, then I would absolutely recommend taking advantage of that opportunity. In general, schools are looking for assessment in a couple ways: academic potential for success, professional potential for success, your fit and the diversity that you can bring to the program. So do a real self-assessment. What are your strengths? Where were your weaknesses in the application? And if you can, try to ameliorate them. So if you came in and your GMAT score or GRE score was average or perhaps below average, it can be an opportunity for you to retake. That can certainly boost your profile. If your work experience tends to be less than the average, or perhaps you feel like you haven't done as much to showcase your abilities in the application, then you might share a recent experience or perhaps a recent recommendation letter that showcases your strength in the professional domain. But like I said first, only do that if that is the school's recommended practice. Now, if you are considering schools and you're on the waiting list at one, and that's your dream school, and you have been admitted to another, the first thing you can do is to request an extension from that first school where you were admitted. Now, that may or may not go your way. Again, this depends completely on the school. So if your school doesn't give extensions, then you'll have to follow their practice. If your school does, then respectfully request that and then thank them for giving you some extra time. And then follow those recommendations I made for the waiting list at that dream school. And should things not work out with that school, be affirmed that the MBA is an amazing investment, and likely this school you'll find is ultimately a wonderful fit for you, because admissions folks, they sometimes can get a sense of that fit and will often do you a favor by admitting you to the right school. So, be affirmed with that.
Very good. Those wait list rules are very important and can easily be overlooked. So, last question. Once an applicant has decided on a school, what can they do to prepare themselves during the months leading up to the start of their first year? Part two, what other advice do you have for incoming MBAs to make the most of their business school experience? That's a big question.
Right. So, first of all, when you're thinking about making the most of your experience, you want to prepare to dive in. And so there's a couple ways you can do that. The first is preparing yourself for the academic experience. And so if you know that you've been out of school for a while, if you've been out of touch with the Wall Street Journal, if you have not done math in quite some time, now is a great time for you to shore up those skills and to get really, really comfortable preparing that kind of academic experience. And so that's one of the things I'd recommend. There are online courses you can enroll in. There is simple prep that you can do on your own, but all of that prep will eventually pay off for you once you get into the classroom. So academics are number one. Number two is professional experience and thinking about that post-MBA goal. I know that sometimes the post-MBA goal may still be unclear. So now's a good time to start doing some informational interviews, perhaps do some industry research or functional research to really think about what are those target industries, companies, jobs that you are going to be looking at post-MBA. So professional experience that you can attain. There are sometimes pre-MBA internships. There might even be shadowing opportunities that you can do through a friend or a friend of a friend or someone in LinkedIn. So just think outside the box when it comes to your professional experience and shoring all of that up. And then thirdly, you want to prepare yourself for the community. So if you can help it, it's always best to try to move ahead of time. You don't want to move the weekend before you start orientation or before you start classes, because there, of course, are all of the life stuff that you have to figure out, like transportation, or where are the best restaurants, or just how to navigate your new city or town. So consider moving a bit ahead of time, visiting the city, learning what you can as well, and then connect with other women and men that are attending the school. There might be communities or social groups online that you can participate in and start forming some of those networks too. Now, to your second question about making the most of your MBA experience, there are so many ways to do that. And there are so many infinite opportunities for candidates that are in MBA programs that can almost be overwhelming at some times, because there are industries and interviews and companies that are coming from all over, and clubs, and the opportunities are endless. So one of the most important advice that I could give, and I've heard other folks give this as well, is to really self-reflect and think, what is most important to me? What is most important to my experience and my goals? And then focus that way, and be sure to allot yourself enough time for the types of clubs and career preparation and academic experience that really is meaningful for you. And then, of course, take advantage of all of the social experience as well, because you are in, of course, an academic environment, and that needs to absolutely be taken seriously. But as I mentioned before, this is a lifelong network of individuals that you will be joining. And so for you to cultivate that and cultivate those friendships and those networking opportunities, that will not just pay off for that initial job search, but for your lifelong career.
I love that advice. Figure out what's most important for you. It's similar to a piece of advice I got entering business school, and that was balance. Figure out balance, because business school is so much more than the academics. Networking and those lifelong connections are so real and so instrumental. And so figuring out that balance between academia, social, family, physical fitness, all of those things you really need to do, because it's such a busy and exciting time. So Thank you so much, Krystal Brooks from Forte MBA Launch, for spending time with us today for our audience members. And with that, we are all done. That is a wrap.
Thanks, Sarah.
That was great. Thank you so much.